Great. Hi, everyone, and good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today, and of course, for your interest in the Luksic Scholarship for Public Service at LSE. We're very excited to be sharing more about this opportunity with you guys today. My name is Gabrielle Trasati, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the Luksic Scholars Foundation. And I will go ahead and start us off with today's event so you can sort of get to know what to expect. So what we'll do is we'll hear from the LSE team first, two representatives, namely Nathan Brennan. Nathan, thanks for joining us today. He's the International Student Recruitment Officer at LSE, and then we're also joined by Kathryn Ward, who's the Premium Services Manager at the School of Public Policy. So thanks, Kathryn. And they will essentially tell us a bit more information on LSE, the School of Public Policy, the programs that are available. They'll touch on the Luksic Scholarship and then walk you through all of the application and financial aid processes. And then we'll hear from two of our stars, two Luksic Scholars. First, Fernanda Ferreccio, who graduated with a Master's of Public Policy this year. So congrats, Fernanda. And we also have Martín Coloma, who's in his final year of his Master's of Public Administration degree. So they'll be able to share with you guys their firsthand experiences as students, provide you with some advice on what to expect. So we're very grateful to have them on. In terms of starting off today's event, I will provide just some brief information as to the Luksic Scholars Foundation, why we exist, who we are. Our first program was created actually 20 years back, and this was in collaboration with a regional office here at Harvard, the Harvard David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies. And this was so that Chilean academics and professors could go abroad, access resources, and essentially the idea behind this program was to connect Chile with the world and vice versa, and essentially to provide Chileans access to academic opportunities that will help strengthen their leadership skills and knowledge. Since that year, we've been able to implement over 30 programs in partnership with 18 institutions, and these programs have been implemented across 7 different countries. We're talking about Chile, of course, China, Croatia, France, the US, and the UK. And as a result, there have been more than 1,800 individuals who participated in these initiatives. And in 2019, that's when we decided, wow, we have over 1,000 scholars who've participated in these programs. Let's see what they're up to. Let's get them connected. That's when we created the Luksic Scholars community to gather everyone together, to have a space where they could continue sharing and for post-program development. And then the year after, that's when we formally became a foundation. And so what guides us in terms of the work that we do, we have 3 guiding principles. These are country vision is the first. We want to make sure that our work certainly aligns with Chile's development, keeping in mind that today's challenges are both global and interdisciplinary. Connectedness would be the second, so seeking to strengthen bridges, not just within Chile, but Chile and the world. And we do this by making strategic collaborations with academic institutions, much like LSE. And then the third would be plurality, and that is making sure a diverse range of people and talent are able to access the opportunities we support. So much like this information session today, or if you guys share with friends and peers or those who are joining us today from universities or institutions to share with your students, that certainly helps. In terms of what we do and the types of programs we support, there are 3 programs. So the first, and what we'll talk about today, are the Master's Scholarships that we provide. So this can allow for the creation of trained leaders and experts in their field, much like Fernanda and Martín, who are here with us today. We then have research opportunities, research funding, specifically allowing for the development and promotion of local knowledge in order to better Chilean academia, get Chilean academia connected with the world. And then we have bespoke programs which help to train individuals in certain skill sets that will benefit their field. And then all of those who essentially participate in any of these 3 programs are then invited to the Luksic Scholars community. And through this, we engage and interact with scholars, as I mentioned earlier, to provide with post-program opportunities. The idea here, and maybe Fernanda and Martín can give you guys some more information on this, but that we're really seeking to accompany entire academic journey. So it's looking at the before, during, and after. Before you go, we like to invite you here into the office or get on the call with you guys to get to know you. The during is we're working closely with LSE. They also provide a wonderful amount of support, making sure, your visa, your housing, all of that. We want to make sure you're connected with other scholars who are also going to be in your same class, for example. And then the after was really where we also come in, is providing exclusive opportunities. We have an annual fund, for example, so you can apply for financial support for an initiative or project that you're working on. So we certainly like to stay in touch, although this is completely voluntary. This is not obligatory in any way to join the community, although we would love to have you. And lastly, more specifically on our collaboration with LSE, this began in 2020 as a response to the pandemic, actually, and the fact that many other scholarship programs were put on hold. And since then, 28 Chileans have received this support. And you're probably wondering, okay, 28 Chileans, there's 4 scholarships a year, but this started a couple years back. How does that make sense? These originally started as partial scholarships. We then decided to standardize all of our scholarships to make them equal across the board. So any of the master's programs that we support, they're all receiving or providing full coverage. This is talking about tuition. You're receiving a monthly stipend, so it can cover all the costs for the entire duration of the program, whether that be 9 months, 18 months. And then we also cover the arrival and travel costs. So the idea is that you're able to focus on arriving without worries. You're able to focus on your professional development while you're on program, rather than having to worry about, the financial aspect or trying to find part-time work, for example. I know LSE, Nathan and Kathryn will touch on more details, but I did just want to reiterate there are 4 scholarships available each year, 2 for the MPP program, so Master of Public Policy, and 2 for the Masters of Public Administration. And it's important to note here that the foundation, us as a foundation, we do not participate in any of the admissions or selection processes. These are exclusively managed by the institutions themselves. So it's important to note, if you want to be considered for the scholarship, you first must apply to the university, to the program, and follow their financial aid processes. So that is it from me. I will now go ahead and share the LSE slide, if you can bear with me one moment. And then we'll start to enter in the chat soon some additional information. And you guys can feel free to also ask us some questions, which we'll get to at the end. Okay. Perfect. Let's see here. Okay. Are we good? Nathan, Kathryn, let me know.
Great. This looks great. Gabrielle, thank you so much for the introduction and the warm welcome. And thank you everyone who's here live. And I'm sure there'll be people watching the recording. Yeah, thank you for taking the time out to be here. I've got the easy part, I think, today, which is I'm going to spend just a few minutes now giving a brief introduction to LSE. Now, of course, if you were to apply for Luksic and you're interested in programs in the School of Public Policy, that is one part of what we do, but I want to give you a bit of an introduction, I think, to start with. Just for a few minutes before we talk in more detail about the programs, the scholarships, and how you can apply. And to start with, you can see this, hopefully you can see this very nice aerial shot of London. There are no prizes for anyone who guesses where LSE is. LSE is indeed right in the centre of London, right near to some pretty famous landmarks that you might already be familiar with. We are about a 5-minute walk from Covent Garden. So if you've ever been to London on holiday, on vacation, you'll definitely have been there to do some shopping or to go to the theatre. We're about 20 minutes away from Parliament, so Big Ben. If you go in the other direction, east, you're in the City of London. It's a big financial district, so we are right in the heart of London. However, we are not the only university in London, so I'm told. There are around about 40 different universities in London, right? It's a crazy number. And so how I always like to start these kind of introductions is to tell you how LSE is different. Yes, there may be 40 different universities in London, and I'm sure that every single one of them will come and do presentations like this and say, look how great, look how interesting we are. But let me tell you why we actually are. So, Gabrielle, if we could go on to the next slide. LSE is it's a very unique university. And the reason for that is on screen. LSE is the only university in the UK which is dedicated to the study of the social sciences. So the way I always like to put this, right, is there are lots of universities in the world where you can go to study politics or go to study economics, or in this case, policy. But there's only one university, certainly in the UK, where that's what everyone does. So when you walk around LSE campus, you hear the most amazing conversations about economics, about politics, about big international debates. And the reason for that is I think LSE is a very real world university. We are very much focused on issues facing the modern world. And to give a sense of this on the next slide, what I always like to do is give a kind of introduction to LSE through what we teach and through what kind of areas might be open to you. So at LSE, we have about 28, 29 different teaching departments, one of those being the School of Public Policy. But of course, the social sciences covers all kinds of areas, whether it be economics, whether it be finance, history, international relations, gender and media, at the graduate level. And so LSE crosses these boundaries. And to give a sense of what we kind of do within that, on the next slide, what I've done is put together an example of some recent research by LSE academics to kind of give you a sense of the kind of conversations we're having here at LSE, what kind of things you might become involved in or conduct research on as a student at LSE. So at LSE, we have one of the foremost climate change research institutes of any university in the UK. This is something that people don't always associate with us being a social science university, but you can see at the bottom right, we have an amazing climate change institute, which is led by someone called Nicholas Stern. And now Nicholas Stern was actually the first person in history ever, anywhere in the world, to write a report on how climate change was going to change the global economy. So the transition onto green energy, the movement to green industries, how does that reshape the global economy? But then you also have people like Peter Pomeranstev, who's a journalist who also teaches at LSE, and he's very much interested in social media, and particularly the impact of social media on big world events. So think things like Brexit, things like Trump's election, but also what we're seeing at the moment in the Middle East. What does social media and these online communities, what role do they play in people's or shaping people's perceptions of the world? And also at LSE, we have people interested in issues specifically local to South America. Someone like Tanya Harmer in the history department is one of the world's leading experts on the Cold War in South America. And she's actually written several books on Allende and Beatriz Allende and the role of Chile in conversations about the future of development in the 70s and 80s. So there's a lot going on at LSE. If there's one thing to take away, it is that we don't just do economics, but we do cover lots and lots of important issues facing the modern world. And you might become involved in some of these conversations coming to study in the School of Public Policy. If we go on the next slide. Last couple of things I just want to finish on is a couple of other differences. And if we go one more time forward, is we're actually quite a small university as well. So we are only 12,000 students in total, which may sound like a lot, but if you look at our neighbours, someone like King's College, they're 45,000 students, or UCL is 55,000 students. And what's also quite interesting is that at LSE, we have slightly more graduate students than undergraduates. So it means if you're thinking about somewhere to do a master's, at LSE, there are actually more master's students than bachelor's students. So we're a small, selective, but also a slightly older community. And just to wrap up, I mean, although we have on the next slide, please, Gabrielle, And one more again, apologies, we'll skip over that. Although we are a small community, it is one of the most international of any university in the world. If you come to LSE as a master's student, 80% of our graduate students come from outside of the UK, meaning there are more students like you at LSE, i.e. not being from the UK, than there are like me being from Manchester, right? And so when you walk around LSE campus, you hear so many different languages, so many different accents, so many different points of view. And what's really interesting, again, thinking from a public policy perspective, is that although we are a small university, we really punch above our weight when it comes to producing world leaders, people you will have heard of. As you can see on screen, 37 world leaders. Let me tell you, I have no idea where we get that number from, but it gives you a sense of the number of people who come to LSE, people like you from around the world. They come to get this incredible educational experience and this deeper understanding of how our world works, whether that be socially, politically, economically, and then quite often go back to their home countries and really make a difference in their communities. So people like Juan Manuel Santos, the former president of Colombia, who recently won the Nobel Peace Prize, right, for kind of bringing an end to the FARC conflict. People like Ursula von der Leyen, first Prime Minister of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, first Prime Minister of Jamaica after independence, current President of Taiwan, even John F. Kennedy registered as an LSE student. So it's true to say people really do come from all around the world and then quite often go on to do amazing things. The very final slide before I hand over to a slight break from the agenda to Georgina is we couldn't go any further. We're talking about Chile. And let me tell you that LSE is full of Chileans. That may be good news. That may be bad news for you. I don't know. But at the moment, we have around about 80 students who come to us from Chile. Let me tell you, that means there are more Chileans at LSE than there are Spanish master's students, than there are Brazilian master's students, than there are Colombian master's students. So it is a huge, huge community on campus. And as a result of that, we have our own Chile Society, there's a South American Society. So if you were worried about being the only person to come, you don't need to worry. Final two things, and then I will hand over just regarding, if we could just advance the slides just a little bit. And once more again, is that you enter into this amazing community when you come to LSE, but a lot also continues after you leave. So once you return home, LSE has a very active alumni society in the region, and you can continue to make use of those connections, whether it to be help finding jobs, getting careers advice, all kinds of things. Now with that, I think at this point I'm handing over to Georgina. Went slightly over there, talking about Chile. But I'm going to hand over to Georgina with that being our general introduction to talk a little bit about the School of Public Policy in particular.
I'm really sorry to disappoint, but it's actually going to be me speaking now. Sorry, it's a downgrade from Georgina, but I'm going to take us through just a bit of information about the School of Public Policy in general, and then a little bit about the LSE application process as well. So all the exciting stuff has been covered, unfortunately. I'm really sorry, but the School of Public Policy is exciting in its own right. So as Nathan mentioned, it is graduate only for the School of Public Policy, and we have 8 different master's programs from all the way from early stage to executive level students. Today we'll be focusing on the MPA and the MPP, as Gabrielle had mentioned. But all of our programs include core training in skills that you'll need, so economics, political science and policy evaluation. So if you're worried about maybe not having the exact skills that we list on our pages, we do provide sort of entry-level courses, compulsory courses on those programs. And we also have recommended like readings and that sort of thing before you join the programs. But what we also do have for the programs is a focus on real world skills and how to apply these skills to your career, to you know, policy back home, to whatever you want to kind of take this program into. So it's not just about being an academic program and kind of learning in the classroom. There is also that really useful real world application. So we have things like professors in practice who will come in and speak to you about their experiences of working in governments around the world. There's also policy and practice speaker series. So there's kind of different things to help you bridge the gap between an academic program and a professional program as well. So you get all of the skills kind of in one package. There's also different student networks as well. So as mentioned, there's the Global Public Policy Network. There's also different student networks and lots of speaker series as well about those professional skills. So there's a lot that's kind of packaged into one small program. Even if you're only here for a year, you still get loads of different stuff out of it. So if we can go on to the next slide, there's just a little bit about the general numbers. So again, as Nathan mentioned, we're a really small institution, but the School of Public Policy intake in 2023 overall was 250 students, but over 56 nationalities represented. So loads of different people from loads of different places all around the world, bringing their own unique experiences, you know, different kind of backgrounds. And that really makes for really interesting discussions, you know, debates, loads of different kind of perspectives that are brought into a classroom for you to kind of learn from, as well as learning from the academics. And there's loads of different backgrounds here as well. So it's not just one particular sector that people come from. We've got things like law, economics, NGOs, education. So really there's not one specific type of student that we're looking for these programs. It's from every different type of background if you are wanting to learn more about public policy. So on the next slide, we've got a little bit about the MPA programs, the Master of Public Administration. So the main difference between this and the MPA is 2 years full time, so it's a longer program. And this is for early stage career. So this is for people who maybe don't have any professional experience or have a little bit of professional experience, but really want to build on that. So there's no formal requirement for professional experience for this program. And so this combines both kind of methodological disciplines with a capstone project. So in the first year, you'll have those compulsory foundation level courses. So things like Introduction to Economics to get your quantitative skills up, along with one elective course. But in the second year, there's also the capstone project. That allows you to work with an external client on a real life, real world public policy issue. So you kind of get a little bit of both here. It's kind of introducing you into the world of work, but still getting you those foundational skills that can really, you know, open up lots of different opportunities for you in the workplace. If we go on to the next slide, just a little bit about the kind of makeup of this program as well. So relatively small still, so average class size is 66. It's a younger average age on this program because we're looking at earlier stage professionals. Now, there's no maximum amount of professional experience that you can have before you're, you know, not eligible for this program. If you have 10 years experience, this may still be the right program for you, but it is aimed at kind of earlier stage. So perhaps if you've not been in relevant professional backgrounds, this may be the right one for you. And just in that small class size, there's 24 nationalities represented. So as Nathan is kind of touching upon, there's loads of different people from different backgrounds on these very small programs, which means that you've got all of those different perspectives and different experiences feeding into the curriculum and to the discussions that you'll be having in the classroom. So the next slide is the Master of Public Policy program. So compared to the MPA, the MPP is an intensive 9-month program, and it is intensive. So this program, there are 6 half-unit courses, as well as an additional 1 full unit, so either 2 half courses or 1 course that make up your full units for the year. And so it is really intensive to kind of fit into a mid-stage career. So what we're looking for is applicants with at least 5 years professional experience for this programme. If you have slightly less, you may still want to look at this, but what we'd be looking for is around 5 years, because that's the point where we think applicants will get the most out of this programme. So it's more about creating professional networks, kind of building on what you've already learned in your career so far, and kind of shaping your career trajectory for what you want to do next with that experience as well. So for people who kind of already started out and are looking to kind of take their career to the next level, and also network and meet people whilst they're here for the 9 months, this program would probably be right for you. So on the next slide, we've got a little snapshot of this. So you can see that slightly larger class size, slightly higher average age, as you would expect for people who've got a bit more experience. So on average, about 9 years of professional experience for this program. But obviously, you know, people at 5 years, people at 15 years, you can really have a look at the program and decide if this one's right for you, based on the modules that are covered, and sort of the outcomes that we usually have as well. And 33 nationalities represented. So again, really diverse and really multicultural. If we go on to the next slide, so that was just a very, very quick tour of the School of Public Policy. This is the bit that we get the most questions about, which is the application to LSE and the admissions process. So we've already mentioned a little bit about the professional experience, but there are academic requirements for these programs as well. So it would be an equivalent to a first or an upper second class honours in the UK system. When these slides are circulated, there is a link to the Chile page as well. Depending on which qualification you've taken and which grading scale it's on, usually from Chile it's a 5 out of 7 or a 70%, but any different qualifications, we can kind of figure those out, and we can liaise with you about that as well. But the professional experience, so just to reiterate, the MPP is a minimum of 5 years, the MPA there's no minimum for that. So if you come straight out of university and you don't have any professional experience, this may still be right for you. We just want you to demonstrate in your application, you know, what you want to get out of the program, why you're interested in this specifically, and if you have any kind of professional aspirations that might kind of align themselves with the content of the program. And just last on there, so a high level of English language proficiency as well. So you don't need to demonstrate that when you initially apply, but if you're made an offer, it would be conditional based on providing English language scores or evidence of an exemption of that. So all of the entry requirements are on the website, but you don't need those at the point of making the application. So on the next slide, we've got a little bit about the statement of academic purpose. So this is a really important part of the LSE application. We don't hold interviews, so the statement of academic purpose is your chance to really show why you want to do this program, what has interested you, which modules are you really interested in, how did you find this program and think that it was, you know, the right one that you want to apply for. So you can see there's a little bit about, you know, the interest, understanding, your suitability for it, but it doesn't want to be too long. So we usually say about 1,000 to 1,500 words maximum. There's no set limit on that, but as long as it's not a dissertation or one paragraph, it should be okay. But it should just describe, you know, your academic interests and also maybe a little bit about professional aspirations as well, as these programs are slightly more professionally, you know, aimed at than other programs. It is worth noting that if you apply for 2 different programs, you can submit 2 different statements of academic purpose. So if you apply to 2 within the School of Public Policy or just 2 across LSE, so they could be in completely different departments, you can write separate statements, but your references would be talking about the same program. So just to keep that in mind as well. So on the next page, there's just a little bit more about the application. So it is an online application. It includes all of the supporting documents, so your CV, your statement of academic purpose, or 2 if you want to attach a different one for each program choice. 2 references. Now, this is our main question, is can you supply professional references? And yes, you can. You can provide both references that are professional or just one. Usually, it's good to include one academic if you can, but if you've been out of education for some time, if you've been working for 10 plus years, then of course, you know, you may find that your employers or colleagues are better suited to speak about your abilities. So whichever ones are best for you is our general guidance. They are still academic programs at their core, so it might be worth speaking to your references before you nominate them, just to let them know, you know, the content of the program and the sort of program that you're applying for. And there is a £95 application fee, but that includes 2 program choices. So you can apply to the MPA and another program in the school if you'd like. You can just apply to one program, it's entirely up to you, but that does include 2 different program choices. And so the next most important thing after all of that is the deadline. So there are deadlines for the MPA and the MPP programs, which is the 12th of January 2024. And that must be a complete application as well. So you'll need to include all of your documents and have submitted that, but also your references need to submit their references. So make sure that you speak to your referees beforehand so that they can submit them in a timely manner. Because if you don't have references attached to your application, then we can't consider it. They have to be there with it as well. And that is the thing that usually delays applications coming to us. So it's a good idea to kind of prepare your referees beforehand. The scholarship application deadline is the 19th of February 2024. So there's a couple of different parts of this. You need your LSE application and you need your financial support application. So just keep those in mind that you do need to submit for both by those deadlines to be considered. And we've got a couple of slides just specifically about the Luksic application as well and the criteria. So to be considered for this, you must be ordinarily based in Chile. Now, ordinarily based kind of just means that you have a basis in Chile. It can mean that you kind of have roots there, that you're settled. If you have any questions about that, you can contact us, but generally it just means that you're based in Chile at the moment and that you have kind of permanent roots there. You must have submitted your application for your programme, so either the MPA or the MPP, in full, so including the references, by the 12th of January. And then you must have submitted the graduate financial support online application by 19th of February. So there's just those three main criteria to make sure that you are definitely considered for your programme and for the funding as well. And there's a little bit about what the application needs to include for the scholarship. So again, this is separate to your main application, so you don't need to worry about including information about the Luksic Scholarship in your LSE application. You can focus solely on the programmes. But for the financial support, you'll want to make sure that it includes these points. So, commitment to public service in your future career. You can include things about academic excellence from your graduate career. And just make sure that it kind of is really focused on, the requirements of the scholarship and what the Luksic Foundation is trying to achieve as well. And I think there's just one more slide from me. So anything else that you need to know. So preference for these will be given to applicants who can demonstrate a professional background or their experience that strongly suggests potential for innovation and original thinking, coupled with demonstrated success. It rolls off the tongue. Preference will be given to those applicants who would otherwise lack financial means to study at LSE as well. So if you think, well, I don't want to apply to this because I don't know how I'm going to fund it, still apply anyway. Those applicants will be given priority for this. So we want to reach out to those people who really show that academic excellence, who have some really great ideas, but otherwise wouldn't be able to study at LSE. So there will be consideration as well for different regional areas in Chile as well. So that will be an independent process for awarding these scholarships. And then there's just a link there about the SPP financial aid. And I think that is my whistle-stop tour finished. There's just a few links here that we'll send around, so a little bit of information on the website, and there's a few information sessions if you want to learn more specifically about those programs, and we'll have some academics speaking about them as well, who will be able to speak in more detail about the curriculum of those programs.
Perfect. Thank you, Kathryn. Just to let everyone know, we'll send a recording of this info session, as well as a copy of the presentation, so you guys have all of the information on hand. That will be sent via email. Thank you, Nathan and Kathryn, for all of that information. Two things that specifically stood out to me is the great representation of Chile and Chileans there on campus. I'm sure Fernanda Martín will speak on that, but I love what Nathan said, that you know, arriving there, you're certainly not alone. And I think the second is to remember what Kathryn said about you don't need to come from a specific academic background. You don't need to have studied political science, for example. It can be education, it can be law, it can be economics, sort of any field really. As you've seen, the LSE candidates are quite diverse, and seems that they're looking for that. And you don't need to be tied to one specific academic background. So feel free to sort of apply no matter what career you're sort of coming from. So now we'll move on to the scholar experience. We get to hear from Martín and Fernanda so they can share with you guys what this is like living on campus, having graduated, what was the application process like. So we'll start with Martín because he's there on campus now, is in the second final year of his Master's of Public Administration. So welcome, Martín. It would be great if you could start by introducing yourself and then just tell us a bit of your motivations of why LSE and how has life on campus been?
Okay, hi all. Thank you a lot for the invitation to share my experience. So let me start with my story, or just to explain what I'm doing here. So, well, I studied engineering at Universidad Católica in Chile. And after that, I worked for more than 6 years in the Center for Public Policies at Universidad Católica, working first in advising municipalities to create the budget, infrastructure project, and so on. And then I worked 4 more years in an applied research area where I work like in a kind of consultancy for different public policy issues, local government, public infrastructure, education, and mainly urban planning and housing policy. So after these 6 years in this Center for Public Policy, I moved to the municipality of La Pintana in south of Santiago, where I work with the housing department. Where I work until I get the scholarship for the LSE. So I would say that my experience is a kind of mix between a theoretical approach when I worked in the university, thinking in the design of public policy and evaluation, and a mix with a practical approach I got in the municipality, facing like the implementation of this public policy. So why I choose the MPA and why I choose LSE, I think after my professional experience, at some point I felt that I needed to incorporate like a new framework to understand public policies and how they work. I understand that, or I can saw that some public policies were successful while others didn't work. So I really wanted to understand the reason of these differences and why, when we understand that there is an optimal policy, some forces or something make impossible then to success. So I really wanted to understand these forces, and I saw this clearly in the municipality, that there was a huge gap between the optimal policies and the policies that finally are implemented. So I wanted to understand this gap, and I'd say that I was more interested on this gap than finding the optimal policy. I don't know if you get it, what I mean, but more than only to design the optimal policy, try to understand why things are not always optimal. So I had this first question, and that's the reason I decided to start an MPA. But why the LSE? Well, first, it's obviously because of the prestigious of the university and the professors. We have here the opportunity to learn from experts in their topics, like international level experts. So this is amazing. And also I was really interested in the 2-year program of the MPA. I had this first question, like a general question of public policies. So I dedicate like the first year of the MPA to political economy, public governance, of things to address this first question of the gap between the optimal and the real policies. But also I had the opportunity to spend the second year on some particular issue I was interested on, which is the housing and urban planning. So I'm spending the second year of the MPA taking some courses from geography or other department to understand this particular issue. So I think the 2-year program gave me a great mix between this general question and my particular interest. I don't know if you want me to continue with the application process or...
Yeah, Martín, it would be great if you could tell us about the application process and then how life has been for you on campus.
Sure.
And then we again.
Sure. I'm not sure if the process is exactly the same as I had 2 years or 1 year ago. But in my case, well, I had to prepare my application to the university. And that was the first step, the statement, the recommendation letter, and other paperwork. And after this, I had to send this other statement to explain why I was a good candidate for any scholarship of the university. Not only the Luksic Scholarship, but any scholarship managed by the LSE. So, and then I had to complete a form with my financial situation, like savings, income, and yeah, all kind of things. So that was my application, and then I just had to wait until I received the letter of acceptance for my scholarship, which was, I think, by the end of July, maybe. So after this, I immediately apply for the visa and everything I need to move on to London. That was the process. But if I had to give you a recommendation, I would say that if you have time, it's a good idea to think or to spend like at least 1 or 2 weeks to think in your story. So try to give a coherence between the statement, the recommendation letters, and everything. I have no idea of the criteria of the university to select the scholarship, but I tend to think that the coherence of the story must be a key factor for the application.
Definitely, like public vocation, compromiso país for talking Spanish. That certainly. And Martín, how has life for you been on campus? How is sort of the cultural exchange, the language exchange?
I think it's amazing. One thing is the prestigious of the university, but I think more than that is the culture of the university. We have classmates for everywhere, different cultures, different backgrounds. And I think most or all of my classmates are really open to share their experience, to learn from each other. So it's an amazing culture of understanding different perspectives, cultures, background. So I think this is one of the best things of being here, I think. And also I think the university, as well as the Luksic Scholarship Foundation, are everyone aware for us to have the best experience, so we can take advantage of the opportunity. We have, I don't know, like an academic mentor for the first weeks. We have something I really love, which is office hours. We can like book meetings with any professor of the university to talk whatever you want for 15 minutes, which is amazing. We have societies for different interests, like music, sports, whatever you want to do in the university, you can do with your classmates. So yeah, I think it's amazing. So and maybe if I had to give an advice, is to be open to everything, like to every experience that the university, the classmates, and the city gives you. So you'll find that the professors are really open to discuss anything you want to discuss and to go deeper in some topics. You will find that your classmates are also open to share their experience, their background. So I think it's a good idea to take time to learn from your classmates as well. And also you will live in an amazing city, a city that is also new for me at least. So I'm trying also to learn from the city. I have a particular interest in housing and urban planning. So I'm always thinking how things was built, was designed. So trying to understand the differences between London and Santiago in Chile. So I think it's amazing, not only the university, but the whole experience we're living here in London.
Thank you, Martín. Thank you so much. And we're very grateful to have you on. I know you're amidst classes and extracurriculars and whatnot, but very much appreciate you sharing your experience and essentially so that others can also feel like, oh, I can see myself there. I can see myself living in London and studying and being a part of the LSE community, of the Luksic Scholars community, of getting to know Chileans who are also there abroad. So thank you. We'll now hear from Fernanda. Congrats, Fernanda. She graduated from her Master's of Public Policy this year in July. And that's the one-year program. That sounds like it's quite intense. So we would love to hear from you, Fernanda. It would be great if you could also introduce yourself and tell us why you chose LSE and the MPP specifically.
Sure. Thank you, Gabriel. Well, as Gabriel said, my name is Fernanda Ferreccio. I'm a lawyer. And well, regarding my professional background, I started working as an associate in a big law firm, but I discovered that was not for me. So then I switched to the government. I worked as an advisor to the Ministry of Economy in Chile. At the ministry, I led several consulting processes to public institutions that were responsible of doing processing different permits that are necessary for investment projects. So in this role, I proposed and developed public policies and recommendations to streamline processes. And that's when I discovered that I really like the public policy world. So that's when I chose to study a Master of Public Policy. Regarding why did I choose LSE and this program in specific? Well, I applied actually to 10 universities, I think, between the US and the UK for my master's, although my LSE was always my top choice. Well, Martina spoke about the prestige that the university has. It has also always been top in the rankings of public policy. That, of course, was very important for me. Also, I think that LSE has a good mixture between political science and philosophical principles and a strong quantitative background. For example, I saw, well, my three last choices were Chicago, for example, University of Chicago, that is very strong in quants. Oxford, that it's more, I don't know, political science and philosophy, but I thought that LSE was the best mixture of both, the best of both worlds, let's say. So that was another reason. Also, the program, they already mentioned that it's really international, for real. The classmates are from everywhere, and that is pretty amazing, I think. Another reason, of course, it's in London. London for me is the best city in the world. And that's in Europe also. So for someone from Chile, that we are so far away from everything, being in Europe where you can travel everywhere, that was an important factor. But I think that the last thing that made me choose LSE was, of course, the scholarship. It was very key in my decision and in the end to help me to decide. And regarding why this program, I actually applied for the Master of Public Administration first. And I decided to switch in July to the Master of Public Policy, mainly because of personal reasons, but also because I really liked the fact that the program was for more mid-career students. Because being able to share with people that has professional experience and a lot of different professional experience, I think it's very enriching. And although at the beginning I was not sure that I preferred a 1 year or 9-month program, I actually, after the master's, I really liked the fact that it was 1 year and not 2 years. So, well, that's why I chose this.
Thanks, Fernanda. And can you tell us a bit about what your experience was like there on campus? How were classes? What extracurricular activities did you do?
Sure, of course. Well, life in campus, as Martin said, is pretty exciting. And there are a lot of opportunities that you can do, or things to do. About extracurriculars, I didn't take much advantage as I should have, I think. The program is very intensive, so I didn't have a lot of free time, and the free time that I had, I used it mostly to hang out with my classmates, my friends, to go to social activities. I did go to all the different events that the SPP and the MPP program organizes. I think that's actually really great about the program and the School of Public Policy, because there are different dinners, drinks, or different other opportunities where you can share with the classmates and the professors. That was a good experience. Also, well, like I mentioned, it's a very international cohort. So I always try to share with all my classmates, well, of course, now my friends, and they are really from different countries, different cultures. We did something that, like, all the people that were from one country, we prepared like events where you could share about your country, prepare traditional food. So we had different events from Japan. Of course, we did a Chilean event, and from different places, but it was pretty cool. Regarding classes, I really enjoy them, especially the elective courses that I took. And I really like that, like the system from LSE, that is, well, something completely different from us in Chile. That is like first you have the lecture with the professor and all your classmates, and then you have the seminar with the teaching assistant and, I don't know, 15 students. So first you learn, and then you can discuss in the seminars. That it's a very good opportunity, I think. You can learn a lot. Also, well, Martin mentioned the professors there are really, really good, amazing professionals. So to be able to learn from them, it's a great plus. And the fact that they have office hours that you can go and talk to them whenever you want. It's also a really good thing about, well, study there.
Awesome. Thank you, Fernanda. Well, I will give us some time for the Q&A here. We appreciate you sort of giving us that screenshot of what life is like on campus, and of course, being in the heart of London. We'll now open the floor to questions, whether these be admissions related, about life on campus, whether questions for Martín or Fernanda. So you guys can feel free to put those in the chat box, and we'll get to those, or if you want to raise your hand, we can unmute your mic. As mentioned, we will send a recording of this and a copy of the presentation. The idea is that you have all of this information that you need to sort of make your informed decision, start to prepare your application materials, and or for universities to share this information with your students. So please feel free to write in any questions. And if there are none, I feel like we've done a great job. Then I hope there are questions, though. There's no such thing as any trivial question, anything you have on your mind. Please feel free to ask here. I know Daniela had one asking about the specific level of the mathematical skills required for the MPA. And Daniela, I would actually recommend that you look on the MPA's site and sort of look at the curriculum and the specific classes. I don't know, Kathryn, if there's maybe a specific link, that she could.
Yeah, definitely. So the program pages will have information about quantitative skills that you will need if you look through the modules. Not from obviously personal experience, but from the admission side, we do consider all applications. So if you're a bit worried about your quantitative skills, you can address that in your application. We have recommended courses that we can send to you. So our selectors will recommend that for certain applicants, and that's just some sort of preparation reading before you start the program. And on the MPA, there are compulsory quantitative courses as well that are kind of foundation level to get everyone to the same level. So if you don't have a really, really strong quantitative background, it's not to worry, but do just have a look through those modules to make sure that it's something that you would be comfortable with. But additional support is provided as well for those.
Thanks, Kathryn. Perfect. And then Camilo has a question of how many scholarships are assigned to each program. So there are two. There are two for the MPA and two for the MPP. And then Magdalena would like to know from Martín and Fernanda if there are any specific tips for the application for the scholarship. If there are if there's any advice.
I think one thing is, as I mentioned, to think in your story and make it coherent. So try to your letter to talk with your statement and everything to be part of the same story. And also something I didn't mention, but in my case, it was a process of 2 years. So I think it's a good idea if you need a scholarship not to be frustrated at the first attempt. In my case, I got the scholarship in the second attempt. So I think it's a good idea to understand this as a process and not just one attempt.
Perfect.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any like tip, like a particular tip. But yeah, I think it's very important to think about your story. This is not only for the scholarship, but also for any application. It's important to think your story and what led you to decide to study a master's of public policy in particular, and why in LSE particular. And also, I believe probably for the scholarship, it's also important to like to mention what do you plan to do with the master afterwards, because this is for public service, for public service scholarship. So I think that probably you have to mention something regarding that.
Perfect. No, thank you. Very helpful. Seems like we're at time and have answered all the questions. Thank you, Magdalena. Awesome. So I think we can end it here. I did just want to give a thank you and a shout out to Nathan and Kathryn and Georgina from the team at LSE and to the Luksic Scholars. Thank you for being part of this community, for sharing your experiences, Martín and Fernanda. We ultimately hope that those in the audience feel excited about this opportunity, that you feel sort of inspired, that I now know what I need to do. As Martín said, this was a couple years, and it's certainly a process, and we hope to be here to help with any sort of advice in the LSE team as well. So thanks. You'll receive further information via email, and we appreciate you joining us today. Cool. Awesome. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.